Hey gang, in this video we're going to show you how to seam together your cardigan. We're working with our crowd favourite, the Jane cardigan, but these techniques apply to all of our cardigans and jumpers. We're tackling the cast off to cast off edge seam, aka the top to top join, as well as vertical seaming. Let's start with seaming the front and back pieces together at the shoulder. So firstly, lay your two pieces flat with the right sides facing up. Thread your darning needle with a length of yarn about 3 times the length of the edge we're seaming. Then, starting from the outside, we're going to seam these pieces together. Line the cast-off edges up, and you'll want the stitches to line up as evenly as possible. For each cast-off stitch, you'll see that we've got a top and a bottom loop, as well as 2 bars in between. We're going to be working in under those 2 bars. So start by inserting your darning needle under both bars of the first stitch on the first edge, and pull your yarn through. Now go across to the other piece and insert your needle under both bars of the first stitch here and pull your yarn through. Then go back to the first piece and in the next stitch along, insert your darning needle under those 2 bars. Then go back to the second piece and insert your darning needle under the 2 bars of the corresponding stitch. Rinse and repeat, going back and forth between the edges, 1 stitch at a time. You're basically weaving a zigzag path across the top of the work like you're lacing up shoes. We're using a contrast colour yarn so that you can see the seaming more easily, but you'll be working with the same colour as your cardigan for an almost invisible finish. Every 4 to 5 stitches, stop and gently tug on your yarn to close the seam. You want it to be secure but not scrunched. And you can see that the seam is almost invisible. And this is what it looks like on the inside. Once you've reached the end of the seam, you're going to weave your tail in on the wrong side, just using your darning needle to thread it back through the seam that we've just created. Excellent work. Once both your shoulder seams are done, we're going to attach our sleeves. So lay the body flat with the right sides facing up, and then fold your sleeve in half long ways to find the centre piece of the sleeve. Mark it with your fingers and then line that centre point up with the shoulder seam. We're going to seam from that centre point down one side and then down the other. We like to use a piece of yarn that's long enough to seam the entire width of the seam. It just means you've got less knots on the inside of your work. So thread your darning needle with a nice long piece of yarn and then insert it through the centre point of your sleeve. Pull the yarn through so that you've got just half of the yarn that you're going to work with on this side. And this time we're working into a slightly different point in the stitches. For the body piece, you're looking for the horizontal bars between rows. And for the sleeve piece, you're working under the 2 bars of your V stitches. When you're working this way, you're trying to line up your rows with stitches, and that can make things a little bit hard because they're not going to line up perfectly. What you want to do is make sure that you're spacing your stitches as evenly as possible, and don't stress if one edge has a little bit more fabric. Once you've worked down one side, you'll thread your darning needle with the other half of yarn and work down the other side. Excellent job, you guys are nearly there. The final step is to seam the sides together. So the way we like to do it is starting at the armpit, you're going to grab the tails that you just had from the previous step and tie them together so that we've got a clear center point for our armpit. Then we're going to work from that center point down to the waist, and then again from the center point down to the cuff of the sleeve. For this step, we're working into the horizontal bars on each side, so that makes things easier to line up and should give us a nice invisible seam. If you're anything like us, seaming all of your pieces together can feel a little like hard work. The key is to be consistent. Make sure you're inserting your darning needle into the same part of the stitch each time, and you're lining your stitches up as evenly as possible. It doesn't need to be completely perfect for it to be almost invisible. When you reach the cuff, it can be a little bit hard to identify those horizontal bars. But as long as you're lining your stitches up and working consistently into the same point on each stitch, you should get a nice neat finish. Once you've seamed all your pieces together, turn your work inside out and secure any tails with a knot before using your darning needle to weave the ends back into the seams for a nice neat finish. And that's it. You've finished your seaming, you've got a completed cardigan or jumper, you should be so proud, and it's time to wear your masterpiece out in the world.